Sunday with us. They're going to the Philippines and be back in the spring. And so love to have you with us. Safe journeys. And it's just a hop, 16-hour nonstop flight. And so it's quite an ordeal. So what a joy to have you with us here, and look for you to come back. As I thought about a lesson, like I mentioned prior, a lot of times I think of a year's goals and all the different areas to think about. And I thought, this year, Paul, you've got one goal. I want to be more grateful. And so my lesson titled, The Power of Gratitude. And just the background has a lot of things of receive and family and ask and truth and community and forgiveness and kindness and hope and all these things. That's all involved in it. But I want us to talk about, what about as individuals, we had one goal this year. I'm going to be more grateful than I was in the past. Because while we're looking at a start of a new year, at least in our calendar, other calendars have it at a different place. And this one resolution will change your life. It'll change my life. It'll change our lives. And that is to be more grateful every day. Maybe you're like me. I'm really grateful when I'm in a good mood. When I'm not in such a good mood, and I work on myself, but really that impacts everything that happens. And so I want us to look at 4 major points. And number one, make sure your daily attitude is one of gratitude and love. And so as I think about different scriptures that apply, in Psalm 100 and verse 4, the psalmist says, enter his gates with thanksgiving. And so you think about Israel going up to the temple and such as that. But I think about us coming together. And seriously, I am so glad you are here. It is a joy to be with you. I'm thankful for each of you. I'm thankful for Vince and Diane, who can't be here but pick us up on broadcast. I'm thankful for Rob Taylor, that doesn't feel the best, and he's here. I had the joy of baptizing him into Christ about how many years ago, Rob? Just roughly? Wow, 20 years ago, baptized into Christ. He's still here, faithful, and just a joy to be with you. I expect 2026 will be a good year. It'll be challenging. Why? Every year has challenges. Wow, here's a flawless year. That's just the way it is. But if we have that right attitude in Ephesians 5 and verse 20, always giving thanks for all things. What if tomorrow you only had what you give thanks for today? Would that change it? Well, yeah, I'm thankful for here this one little thing rather than for everything. In Ephesians 5:20, there's that sentiment, giving thanks for all things. And as we think about it, what if that were to change our life? Yeah, but Paul, some hard things happen. Being thankful for the many life lessons that you've learned. Jim Myers, who died last year, he had a saying. He said, we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. Our success might have been an accident. Our failures tend to end up something we paid dearly for. And I think about the reversals in my life. And some I have paid enormously for. Why? You didn't do enough of your homework. You just acted and boom. How did that work out? Not so well. But I tell you what, it stung. And it makes us more alert. We're more mature. We have a better sense of, here would be a better way to make our decisions in life. Being thankful for all things. Each day you have a chance to do better and be better. Well, how was yesterday? Well, depending on the day. But today is a new day. And I thought about that as on my way here and appreciating it. Appreciating every day. I got up and for the time being, my vehicle is outside the garage. I had stuff in there that I'm going to move and so forth. But my vehicle had to be outside. As I get up to it, wow, maybe like some of yours, frost all over the place, and so there's different ways to do it. I go in, I don't get hot water to put on your windshield, I don't want to crack it, but lukewarm and splash it on, and around the car I use a couple of the jugs to do it with, and it cleans it up pretty good. But not perfectly, and so I get a couple blocks, and then the frost begins creeping up, and it's beautiful. And I get the chance in a sunny Sunday morning to get out with my little credit card and scrape off the ice. But I am thankful I have a car to get here. I am thankful for the beauty of the patterns of the ice. I'm thankful I had a credit card to scrape it off with. That it didn't have to, wow, that ruined the day. It didn't ruin the day. This is the Lord's day. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And be thankful each day for God's strength that help you get through the challenges of that day. It really changes our whole focus, our whole outlook of, wow, here's a bad thing, and then the too unfortunate that such and such happened. Today is the day of the Lord. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Why do you have that attitude? Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through him that strengthens me. And if that's our attitude, well, yeah, there's these little bumps, but you get a flat tire, oh, that day's ruined. I mean, ruins my life. Well, not unless you're on the freeway going 60 miles an hour and your car goes sideways and starts rolling. That would have an impact. It doesn't matter. Well, I got wet. Yeah, but I didn't get pneumonia. I got pneumonia, but I didn't die. That is everything. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That it's okay rather than a catastrophe. Think about this, of giving thanks not only for everything, but for who you are. You say, yeah, but I'm not all that great. I'm just an ordinary person. Guess what? We're all ordinary people. Virtually everybody in the Bible almost was ordinary. Jesus wasn't ordinary. Enoch was somewhat unusual, but virtually everybody else is just ordinary people. In Colossians 1, verse 12 and 13, Paul said, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified us to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. For he delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. I want to tell you, man, I earned my way. He said, Paul, you are nothing. You are upside down. And God saw you and said, you know what? This is going to take some work, but I think we can get this guy on the right track, with 2 cranes and so forth. But God lets us all, regardless of the difficulty of our background, to share the inheritance with the greatest saints that ever lived. Why? He took us out of the power of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom. Wow. And 1 Corinthians 15, verse 9 and 10, Paul said, I am not fit to be called an apostle because I persecuted the church of God. Darrell Bean once said, you think about Paul, he may have been killing the Christians that Peter was baptizing. Now carry that along for the rest of your life. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. And I was thinking about my own life before I became a Christian at 18. There are things that I did that were so hurtful to people, so unhelpful to society in general. Hurting people or their circumstances when you didn't have to. But the next guy suggested it, and yeah, well, okay. And it was wrong then, wrong now. And I can't undo that. I can't pay it back. I don't even know who it was, but I can pay it forward. I can do better from that day on. I can bless others. I can make a change in my attitude that is by the grace of God. I am what I am. You are what you are. God put us into the kingdom and said, I've got a plan for you. And so every day, show gratitude and good and give thanks. It's another day to become more like who you were created to be and what you were created to fulfill. You have an opportunity to be an achiever. I am a number of things. I'm a father, I'm a citizen, I'm a grandfather, I'm a preacher, I'm a number of things. But all of that, the greatest thing, I'm a child of God. And I just goosebumps because that puts me in a whole new relationship. And I got there by the grace of God, as we all do. Paul says in 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verses 15 and 16, he said, Jesus Christ came into the world to save sinners, among whom I am foremost of all. Every time I come across that, I picture this long line of humanity. Except in this line are the sinners. And he said, I want to tell you where I, the Apostle Paul, am. Man, I'm at the front of that line. Wait a minute, there's others that was really messed up, and here's Paul and half of us anyhow. And Paul said, oh man, I am so far beyond that. And then he says, verse 16, yet for this reason I found mercy, in order that in me, as foremost, Jesus Christ might demonstrate his perfect patience. He said the beauty of that is I am way at the head of that line. And if Christ can show mercy to me, he can show mercy to you. You go, oh, I got it. It is thrilling. I don't have much to work with. God didn't have a whole lot to work with when he chose me. But I will do the best that I can. I am so thankful for his mercy that I was given the grace, the undeserved blessing of being part of his family. I will be the best that I can. I will do the best that I can. I want to this year be the most thankful that I can. And then think about this, about showing gratitude in how you serve. In Galatians 5 down in verse 13 and the second half of that, he says, through love, serve one another. You may not have the best health, but you have a chance to inspire. You may have not have the greatest gifts, but you have a chance to inspire others. Focus on how successful you can be in serving and blessing. It's possible for all of us to liberate somebody, to help somebody, to serve somebody. Honor your calling by doing what you are supposed to do. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 9, Paul, after he comments on a thorn in the flesh, and we're not sure what it is. People have all kind of guesses. One of that is a horrible eye infection. He tells the Galatians, what was a trial to you in my flesh? And that you would have given your eyes to me, if possible. And so perhaps that was the thorn. And he said, I prayed to God 3 times that it might depart. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, God said, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Paul said, man, I so wish I didn't have to deal with this. God said, deal with it. Because I want to tell you, because you have that physical anomaly, you are in fact going to be more powerful. Oh, no, Mickey, how tall are you about? This morning I was thinking, man, I remember I wish I was 6'3". And my shoulders were out to here, and my chest was that, and, looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've been working on it. How'd that work out? I started when I was 15. Not much changed. I didn't get any bigger. I didn't get any thicker. At least in the shoulders. I didn't get any deeper in the chest. It is what it is. I don't have the genetics that do that. But I have the God of all creation that said you can be stronger and better and more faithful than you ever were. And so it's chilling. You get goosebumps. God said, I want to tell you, you take what you got and do the best you can with what you got. And you are going to be an inspiration to others. There's a gal that maybe some of you might have remembered. Mike Walker, were you around in Sumner in the days of Eula Timmons? Okay, he was. Now, back in the day, Sumner was more like the Wild West when I first got there. Whoa, it was really exciting. Not always because it's well organized and smooth going, but it was exciting. Individuals had some things to correct, and I was a young preacher. I was 27 years old when I started. And then before I got there, the congregation had some internal conflict. In fact, they had a lot of internal conflict. And I said, look, families ought not be that way. And so I'd go to the various families. I said, what would I have to do to have peace? And I said, well, I could do this, but Joe Schmo over here, he's an irritant. And what about that? Well, Billy Bob over there. And seriously, 2, 3, 4, 5 people per Sunday morning would come up front and said, I just want to say, I am sorry for my part, and I want to do better. And so that was the kind of the era that it was in. And in these families, there was this one sweet lady who had 2 adult rambunctious sons. She was a widow. And I mentioned here, like on the slide, she had peripheral neuropathy. Not at first, but it began. She had problems walking, and then would walk with a cane, and then a cane with 3 or 4 legs or little feet on the bottom of that. But she never gave up. And when the cane wasn't sufficient, it was a walker. When the walker wasn't sufficient, it was a wheelchair. And I had a class like on Wednesday night on Acts or whatever, and on those that couldn't come on Wednesday night would come on Thursday morning. So we had a handful of people, and here's one of these great individuals. Her daughter would bring her to Bible study on Sunday morning, and some of you had known the story from decades ago. And so she wanted to be, we try to be as healthy as we can and whatnot, but her system was deteriorating. And so one of the things was grind up vegetables and get the juices and whatnot. And so the story was she was right-handed and had her blender, with the little blades going around the bottom. She'd put carrots in there, hand slipped, fingers went into the blades. Just rushed to the emergency room, 233 stitches. She in her wheelchair, some of like these little school things in some of the airlines, they have this little flop over a little desk writing spot. Well, that's what she would use in the Thursday morning class. Her daughter would wheel her, grown daughter and married, wheel her in, set her down there, and she'd have her little pad and get out her Bible and she'd make notes. So on Wednesday night, her hand went into the blades. They took her in and sewed her up, and then I thought, wow. She showed up on Thursday morning with her hand in this big white gauze bandage. Her daughter wheeling her in, and what's she doing? She's taking notes with her left hand. Oh, wow. Who would have thought it? But it continued on in its degenerative course, where they got a hospital bed and put it in her apartment. And we'd go visit her and such as that. And one of the things that I cherish to this day, from her hospital bed, she's teaching teenage young women how to be godly people in a hospital bed. Yeah, wow. Maybe the most inspirational at the most difficult part of her life. Well, if she can, we can. In Colossians 3:17, this is part of the song we sang just a few moments before we got up here, is whatever you do, in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord. But look at the last, giving thanks through him to God. So everything we do, everything we're involved in, what if we're more thankful, demonstrate more gratitude in this year? Influence others the best you can, how you can, and where you can. It changes everything. And so as we think about this area of gratitude daily for everything, well, how does that work? Well, that's what Paul said to do in 1 Thessalonians 5:18. In everything, not just some great once in a while things, in everything give thanks. So I thought about a new day to begin better for a loving, dedicated family. The ability to overcome hardships for friends who never gave up on you. Being surrounded by positive, encouraging people. Not everybody gets that. We do. And you go, wow. In everything, give thanks. for crisp fall leaves, first snowfall, hot chocolate, hot coffee, and a warm home. For kisses and hugs and learning from others. For God's providence, the privilege of prayer. For his forgiveness and the hope of heaven. Everywhere we turn, we are blessed. Give thanks for everything. For the beauty of God's world, a relatively stable government, the ability of medical professionals, for how far you've come. I appreciate GPS because I tend to get lost, and it keeps me on track. For cell phones to stay connected, for hot showers and a good night's sleep, for a degree of prosperity and a degree of health. We can be thankful for everything this year. Because why would we want to do that? Because gratitude makes us happier. Philippians 4, verse 6 and 7. I came across this in college. I had just been a Christian, whatever length of time by that time, maybe a year and a half, and everything's brand new to me and trying to figure it out and stress in college. And I started out certainly as not a very good student, but I had a lot of desire. And Paul said, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your requests be known to God. Paul, what are most of your prayers like? God, I got this length prayer, a request for this person and that person and all these different people, what they need, and God, thank you for the food. So, well, Paul, are you really expressing thankfulness in all these areas? Well, I got all these requests and a little bit of thankfulness. Apostle Paul goes on to say in verse 7, and the peace of God which passes all comprehension shall guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So I looked down at this hand. I would guess it's a woman's hand because of the ring that's on the forefinger. And whatever trials this person is going through, they've stopped, and maybe this is some other thing, but it looks like a tiny little miniature daisy. They've stopped to enjoy the beauty of God's creation in the moment. Do we do that? Or are we so filled with all the to-do lists and obligations and responsibilities and challenge and traffic, and rather than saying, and by the way, God, this is a beautiful flower. A story when I was younger and did tons of counseling, Glenn and I had kids camps for college and for Christian families and whatnot. Here was a gal who was 14 from a religious background, and she was drug using, actively sexual, and suicidal. Wow. And I came across this story just shortly before, and through the years I've shared it with people. It's kind of an outlook on life. The neat thing is she was part of this kids' camp, and I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with her every day, encouraging and building. She went back home, was baptized, and lived a Christian life. Here is the story, and it goes something like this, that a man was running away from a tiger, and there was a cliff and nowhere else to go, and so he jumped over the cliff, and on the way down, there was a vine growing out of the cliff wall, and he grabbed it to break his fall. Now, suspended, he looks up, and there's a tiger above him pacing back and forth, so he can't go in that direction. And he looks far below, and happens to be a tiger down there pacing back and forth, hoping he ends up down there. The man looks straight ahead, and at the base of the vine, against the cliff wall, there are two mice, so the story goes, one black and one white, chewing off the vine at its base. And he looks to his left, and there are a clump of wild strawberries. And he picks one off and pops it into his mouth, and he says, my, how delicious. Why would he do that? Well, it's kind of a metaphor for life. You're not going back. You are going on. It's just a matter of time. Why don't you enjoy the moment you are in? Waiting rather than, if I had better circumstances, then I would be happy. And repeatedly we find out it is not the circumstances or the amount of things that brings us happiness. It is the contentment and gratitude that does it, not the things. So, being a happier person because of gratitude. Colossians 3 and verse 15 said, let the peace of God rule in your hearts and be thankful. Rather, oh yeah, but what's going to happen with this next bill and the collector and this due date and my car and the job and the kids and the house? And there's always a gazillion things. But is my attitude, I'm okay. Whatever's in God's will, I'll do the best I can where I am with what I have to do it with. So think about gratitude shielding you from negativity. It makes you at least 35% happier, rewires your brain, minimizes stress, enhances your immune system, boosts your self-esteem and performance, improves relationships, and improves the law of attraction. Think about this. If you're around somebody that's constantly irritated and negative and the world is terrible and probably so are you, that's not as much fun, is it? So that's kind of the law of repulsion. But somebody that's got a great attitude, that's loving and cheerful, regardless of the difficulty of their circumstances, that just inspires you. You want to emulate that. I can do better and I can be better. Back years ago when we were in West Campus, the C family, Albert C. was one of my closest friends. He was the dad, has since passed away. And Freeman C., one of the sons. Anyhow, they were talking about as they were worshiping down in the general Olympia area. I don't know exactly where they were. There's this little tiny gal, kind of skinny and, a zillion years old, meaning probably about my age then. But anyhow, and this little tiny gal, and got cancer in one eye, and they took out one eye. And so the lid closed. And maybe she's 90, let's say. I don't know, I'm not 90, but what would she do? She would invite the church home, small little congregation, to her house every Sunday. Dick Radke, I think it was, telling me about this gal who, faithful and loving, but got cancer in maybe the right arm, and they said, well, you can survive, but you're going to lose your arm. Dick said what she did was practice. She said, look, I got one other arm, and so she was practicing dressing herself and cooking with one hand. The attitude of, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's not the circumstances that determine who we are and what we do, but the heart we have to do it with. So as we think about that and as we bring this lesson toward a close, think about ways, just to summarize, to practice gratitude. Redirect your focus from what you don't have to what you do. That's one of the amazing things. People with lots of stuff aren't necessarily happier. Why? Because they just wish they had more stuff, or they don't have as much stuff as somebody else. And their families are in chaos. Sometimes it's people in extreme poverty. They're incredibly happy. Why? Because of gratitude. They're thankful for what they do have. Reflect on your blessings. We sing songs about that, count your many blessings. Some people suggest making a gratitude journal. Some people like journaling. And wow. Think about saying thank you. Saying it often. Every day to God and to everybody. A couple of days ago, I forgot which store I was going through, maybe QFC, and I was headed on to the back to get some yogurt or whatever. And here's a guy in the produce department. I mean, it's fairly early. There's not a lot of people around. And so from, 30 feet away, he said, how you doing? And I said, double good. How are you? That I want to communicate. I am so happy that I appreciate that hello. And not only, it's just not that, hi, how are you, goodbye, It was said with enthusiasm. I want to encourage that other person as well. What if you say that to everybody and tell people when they bless you and they do something? And my phrase is, you get a gold star. And sometimes it's 2 or sometimes it's 3. You're telling people, I really appreciate what you've done. Think about this idea of practicing mindfulness, that being aware of the blessings in the moment, just enjoying. This morning, in fact, just instantly I thought about, I'm warm. I don't know about you. About a week ago, this building was not quite as warm, but Bill Crandall helped us out. So, okay, here I'll lay hands and I'll say, cast the demon out. That is, fix the battery in the thermostat on the wall. That you are here, that we are here. And it's a joy to be with you. And then choose kindness. Express it to others. Pay it forward. And the reason is there's power in gratitude. It's not happiness that brings us gratitude. It's gratitude that brings us happiness. So happy New Year to you all. And I would rejoice if you say, I have got one resolution this year. I'm going to be more grateful. I want to be more grateful to God. Everything that He has provided. And it's not going to be, I will be happy when, or I could be happy if. Gratitude is a thing that allows you to be happy. We're going to be singing this song. If you'd like to respond in any way, would like prayers, Song 193. Brother Mike, lead us and guide me, O thou great Jehovah. Let's be standing.